Hi everyone, it's Norm here. On today's episode, we're going to be learning about the only reptile that makes our species at risk list here in the tallgrass prairie natural area, and that is the snapping turtle. So stay tuned to hear all about them. Snapping turtles are really hard to mistake for any other species that we have here in southeastern Manitoba. They do have a sort of prehistoric look. Makes sense, seeing that they haven't really changed much in the last 90 million years. So their overall color is dark brown to olive green, and that does include the upper shell. So the upper shell, also known as the carapace, can be about 50 centimeters long on average. To give you an example of how big that is, this one is about 40 centimeters long. The male snapping turtle will get up to weights of about 18 kilograms on average, and the female about half that. So there are some much larger snapping turtles out there that have been recorded to be over 34 kilograms, so that's 75 pounds, but those would be really big ones, and they're probably even living past that maturity level, that maximum life expectancy of 75 years old. So really old ones, really big snapping turtles do exist. They're a slow moving animal, so they can get a bit larger and live longer. So you'll notice in this photo here that the head, the limbs, and even the tail isn't really fully retracted into the shell. Now that's generally a defensive mechanism that the turtles use to keep away from potential predators. Snapping turtles don't have that. So they can retract them slightly, but they rely on their upper jaw, which is quite hooked and pronounced, as a defensive mechanism. So they can be slightly aggressive out of water, and that's how we get the name snapping turtle. However, it's a little bit of a bad name for them because really they don't attack people as much as you may have heard. They're pretty docile, especially in the water. Snapping turtles prefer to spend their time in bodies of water that are slow moving with a sandy or clay bottom. So things like swamps, ponds, or streams usually do the trick. They like areas that are densely vegetated as well. They do eat vegetation, but as an omnivore, they actually use the dense vegetation in these waterways as cover for hunting. And they'll eat things like fish or frogs or really anything that comes their way. So in the springtime, the mating also happens in these waterways, but the egg laying happens outside of the water, usually nearby in sandy or gravelly areas. The female will search out a nest site and then lay a clutch of on average 25 to 45 eggs. There have been cases of over 100 snapping turtle eggs found in one clutch though. Something interesting about the incubation process is that if the eggs are incubated at 23 to 28 degrees Celsius, then the turtles that hatch will be male. If the eggs are incubated on either side of that temperature, then they'll end up being female. And it does take them about 2 to 3 months to hatch. Now, once that hatching does happen, it's getting a little bit into late summer, early fall, soon after winter is coming. So snapping turtles do not migrate, and they do not hibernate either. They do something called brumation. It's sort of the reptilian version of hibernation. So it's quite similar, but it's said that the snapping turtle will actually be more conscious during its overwintering. And where that'll happen is in the muddy bottoms of these waterways. So it's important that these muddy bottoms do not freeze right to the bottom. If they do freeze, then the turtle will actually die. So a brumation area is very critical when it comes to selection for the snapping turtle. In the southern range of the snapping turtle, so way down south in the United States, there's no brumation needed. The turtles can stay awake throughout the year, although they do tend to slow down in the cooler months. Speaking of range, here in Canada, we do make about 10% of the snapping turtle range, and that's from Saskatchewan eastward to the Maritimes, and that's all in the very southern portions of these provinces. Population of snapping turtles are generally considered to be fairly stable in most of their range. However, here in Manitoba, it is in a slight decline. Our population is really important to keep healthy because we are on that sort of edge of the population. So it's important to keep that big population from the outside in healthy, and that starts with ours. The issues that our snapping turtles do face include things like habitat loss or even high mortality rate near roadways. If you think about it, where is a great place for snapping turtles, or any turtles really, to lay their eggs in our area would be along those gravelly roadways. So mortality rate being struck by vehicles is quite high. Now, what's really made more complex with these issues is the fact that snapping turtles have a fairly late sexual maturity. So they don't reach sexual maturity till about 15 to 20 years old. So what that means is if a mature female is out laying eggs on the side of the road and she gets hit, the population really suffers for years to come, because it doesn't just take 1 year or 2 years for her replacement to come. It takes 15 to 20 years. So it's all a bit more complex because of that. Now, here in southeastern Manitoba, we are lucky enough to have snapping turtles around, and with some proper management, hopefully they will be here for years to come. So that's everything that we have on today's episode. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.